So that's all to come. So there's a lot of positive news to come. How long before ETH, Bitcoin, Sol break their recent highs? I don't know. It could be 2 weeks. It could be 2 months. If you're going to allocate money to anything, it has to beat that. If not, you should keep your money in Sol. That's how I think about everything now. Everybody's going to lose their fucking minds. It's all going to go bananas. It was actually about Q4 last year. We were talking about stock markets and liquidity. And then you look at those charts of, what Bitcoin does at the back end of, the crypto cycle. And it's like, well, clearly it's a fucking banana. So therefore it has to be the banana zone. It's unbelievable. So I see my comment section. Everyone's gone from banana zone and posting, various memes to where the fuck's my bananas? You're a fraud. I'm like, guys, it's not an hourly chart game here. This is, I always said, listen, does it come this week, this month, next month? I don't know, don't really care. The point is, you have your positions ready, you do nothing, and magically bananas appear. Yes, it's confusing because there's crypto spring, which kind of ended, it's transitioning now into crypto summer. That period lasts into the end of this year. And then we go into crypto and macro fall. Okay, those are the seasons. There's 4 of them. But we've actually, live in the real world too, and they have seasons. And so, yes, we're coming into summer as well. I mean, but what I mean by it's all going to have to happen in autumn. Look, the back quarter of an election year is true banana zone in all assets. It always is. So that you've got a very, very, very high probability that by autumn things are utterly ripping. And that's what I mean by that. I mean, how long before ETH, Bitcoin, Sol break their recent highs? I don't know. It could be 2 weeks. It could be 2 months. Doesn't really matter, but then it accelerates. And that's when I have a whole selection on my desktop of banana memes that I shall be unleashing. I love Mo. I'm on the foundation of Sui, which is the other Move protocol. Both came out of Facebook Libra project. The Sui team rewrote the entire code stack. But this is the Move protocol. And even people like Chris Baniski have said, listen, is there chance of a Move virtual machine as well? Because the technology stack is so incredible. Now, I think Arthur's probably being hyperbolic about Aptos flipping Solana. But I see a lot of activity, a lot of business development opportunities, a lot of speed from the network. There's a lot going on. So I would choose Sui over Aptos. But again, you can discount it because everyone say, well, he's got tokens because he's on the foundation.
Rationally, wouldn't you only join a foundation of something that you were extremely bullish on?
Of course. I've mentioned this. The big trade for probably Q4 this year and all of next year, well, as long as the bull market lasts next year, will be this next round of layer ones. Like Solana did last time around. It was Solana, Avalanche, Luna, and Matic last time. Ethereum, the time before that, EOS, bunch of others. This time around, EOS. What's it going to be this time around? I think it's going to be... I don't know. Monad, a lot of people talk about. I don't really have a clue. Sui, I think, is in with a decent chance. Whether Arthur thinks Aptos, and there'll be something else near, maybe. It doesn't mean that they're going to be the best performers. There'll be all sorts of incredible stuff that ends up being better performers further out the risk curve. But this part is a trade that almost everybody can participate in and make real money in. It is really not clear what it is. How I address this is I now look at the Solana chart versus a bunch of these. And you start looking for a basing. You always look at divergences. Those would be your first signal. Then you'd look for some sort of chart change in pattern. I'm looking at those because that will be a signal that, hey, look, there might be a bigger trade here. And that could be a fun one because those tend to go truly bananas when they happen. Not so much the benchmark. It's like the major top performing asset. If you're going to allocate money to anything, it has to beat that. If not, you should keep your money in Sol. That's how I think about everything now, right? Which is why I'm hyper concentrated in Sol, because over time it has beaten all the major bets. I've owned and I still own WIF and Bonk. Why? Because they actually outperformed Solana, and the chart showed that. Does that continue? I don't really know. But that's how I think about it. It's like I'm allocating capital. I want to make the most money possible, taking the least amount of risk. Solana's a low risk bet, but if I'm going to allocate capital further out the risk curve, it better beat Solana. If not, I'm just wasting money. So that's all to come. So there's a lot of positive news to come. You hear a lot of kind of business development opportunities coming out of Solana. I was in Singapore hanging out with the head of business development of the foundation. There's a lot of activity going on. So I'm still super positive. The chart price action looks good to me. I think it's forming a big wedge pattern. That wedge pattern, I think, breaks higher. What you've got is excess saturation of supply building. Doesn't mean you won't have breakouts. Doesn't mean you won't have kind of a king of memes that survives all of this. We saw that with NFTs, but what it is a total grab going on now. Anybody and everybody is launching a token to see if they can make some money, and all they're doing is destroying their own market. So the returns of these things go down over time, apart from the ones that actually break out. What they're going to be, who the hell knows? Again, we'll find out once we get to the banana zone. We'll really see. So you can really see where the risk curve is. But when the banana zone comes, people will just go way too far out the risk curve, and we'll see some really crazy stuff happening then. The election cycle in crypto, now we only have 4 of these, but they tend to do the same thing, which was early summer into this June period. They tend to chop and fall. Then it tends to just go up, and there'll be a couple of corrections en route. So it should just keep going up, again, with volatility. So that's why I put out that tweet about Solana. Feels like the low is in. Who knows whether I'm right or not? It feels like the low is in. Sentiment was awful. I think the chances are that it just continues to rise now and then really accelerates as we get into the... Once you have utility, you can start to value stuff. Once you don't, you just have attention. And then it's a game of how much attention do I capture and how big is that attention? If you have utility on a meme coin, then you end up with a problem because people are like, well, are people using this protocol or are they using this DEX or whatever it's based on? And then they see that they're not. With WIF, they're not using anything. It's the same bloody image attached to a fungible token of which nobody cares. The story I've been trying to explain to people is you've got to understand what this space is about. Blockchain technology is a new technology layer of the internet, of which there's a bunch of decentralized businesses that sell block space. And they all have a different angle of why to buy their block space. Bitcoin is, we're the most secure, we can be used as money or a reserve asset. Ethereum's, hey, anybody can build on us. We're like this big open computing network. Solana's like, yeah, we can do that too, but we're kind of super fast and super cheap. Everyone's just selling block space, and they have a different story to tell to attract people. And that's all that's really going on here. People turn it into some fight over money. That's Bitcoin's story. But it's not the whole industry story. What is this all about? Attention. What are elections all about? Attention. What's got a lot of attention? Cryptocurrency. And it also happens to have a lot of money because it's based on this participation in this ecosystem via the tokens. And therefore, there's no way that they go to an election and try and alienate 50 million people. I mean, that's dumb. So I guess they finally understood because Trump showed it, rammed it down their throat. My only prediction about the election is everybody's going to lose their fucking minds. X is going to be a pretty ugly place going forward. It hasn't really started yet, but by next month, by about August, things will start ramping up and everybody's going to find another reason to hate each other online. We've seen it before. Don't hang on to that stuff because that's the narrative you're left with. Doesn't mean they're terrible things, but look, attention flows to the shiny thing. Attention flows where more people are. Now, can we have one of those altcoin seasons? Yes, but there's more of them. So you're splitting that attention and that capital amongst more projects. Because every cycle you leave a bunch behind. Like EOS didn't run last cycle, really. Stuff gets left behind. So you have to be really careful, which is why I say just don't play that game. Don't play the value trap game, which is oh my God, that's still down. And last time it was so strong, I need to own that. It's like, it's actually a bull market to just own the strong thing, because that goes up a lot, because it actually is like a super massive black hole of attention. And the more attention, more number go up. Less attention, less so. So unless a huge narrative shift happens to Matic, this is not going to get the attention that Solana's going to get, or Ethereum, or Bitcoin, or whatever. Just don't fight with one hand behind your back. Don't try and prove a point to the market. That's not your job. Your job is to make as much money as possible out of this technological transformation. You know, if this space is going from $2.5 trillion to $100 trillion, which is, I think it's doing, your job is to not fuck that up. And people try really hard to fuck it up. Either too much leverage, so then they're taken out. They go too far out the risk curve with too much of their capital, and then they blow up. Or they get stuck in stuff that is not moving because they're not just trying to participate in the bigger part of the growth, which is usually in the larger projects. So, you know, we're trying to get from $2.5 trillion to $100 trillion. You need to stay that ride and not end up looking back and realizing you've made no money from it. And that trick is just look at the charts relative to each other. You know,
I'm going to start doing that.
It's really useful, because then it stops you building your own narrative around, well, you know, this token is definitely going to be the one. Then you look at it versus Solana, it's down 99.9%. You're like, okay, I'm trying to kid myself, because you're looking for this chart breakout on the hourly chart, hoping it's going to base here. It's like, don't do that, please. Just buy the strongest assets.